Be it resolved.
And welcome to Be It Resolved, your weekly, lively, humorous, and insightful debate program here on YouTube. And we've been doing this for nearly a year now, and we haven't missed a week. And we've got a great resolution for you today. So listen to this one. Be it resolved that governments worldwide are using the pandemic to take away our civil liberties. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We're going to find out. Arguing for this resolution are Mr. Alex Brown, okay, and Sarabjit Sandu. Okay, now arguing against it are myself, Andrew Wood, and our good friend Mario Karakidis. Okay, now here's how we do this. We present a 3-minute constructive argument, alternating between pro and con. And then we'll have a 5-minute round robin session. And then we'll sum up our arguments with 90 seconds of final thoughts. So before we launch into this, let me just remind you that the opinions being expressed by people here on this podcast do not necessarily reflect our actual opinions. That's the whole thing about debate, isn't it? We're playing with ideas. So here we go. Mr. Alex Brown, you have 3 minutes to make your argument starting now.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last half century worldwide, we have been developing increased freedoms for almost everyone, even in some of the most remote corners or oppressive corners of the world. In the past, freedom has come to certain levels, not perfect freedom, but certainly levels of freedom. Here in the West, we have enjoyed the highest levels of freedom of all, I do believe. And this guy can categorize in certain different ways. Firstly is the freedom to travel. We can go anywhere we want, or we could, anywhere we wanted in the world, as long as we could pay for it. The second thing, we could say just about anything we want, even some rather nasty things, on Facebook, and with essentially impunity. And of course, we had the freedom of governance. Our governments were beholding to us and had to do our bidding. And we were also free from regulation for the most part. Of course, there's always must be regulation to keep us all in line, because we can't live in a society of 7 billion peoples in the world if there aren't rules and regulations. All of this is now under threat. All of it, we're going to lose to a certain extent. In some places are going to lose more than others. Here in Canada, we face unprecedented changes we've never seen. Even before half a century ago, we had freedoms to do pretty much things that we had never thought that we would ever lose, but they are under threat today. And it is very clear on this. And my colleague Sarab here is going to detail them when it's his turn. We have to be careful about the world that's going forward, because we have so much to lose if we allow our governments to continue to erode our civil liberties. Andrew, back to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Okay, thank you. Okay, just a moment here. And okay, well, speaking next for the con side in this argument is Andrew Wood. So Andrew, you have 3 minutes to make your arguments, starting now. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Well, listen, viewers, fellow debaters, I mean, well, look, this resolution, be it resolved that governments worldwide are using the pandemic to take away our civil liberties. You know what's implied in that resolution? It's implied that governments know what they're doing. That would be like basic to the resolution. And they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea. I mean, look, I'm going to use our Canadian thing for an example here. And we're speaking from Ontario. All of us live in Ontario, Canada. And we have had a nasty time of it through the past several months of the pandemic. And we have, yes, we have had governments who've taken away some of our civil liberties. We're not allowed to congregate in groups. Restaurants are not allowed to open. Golf courses are shut down tight against that nasty virus. Well, look, okay, so no, those are civil liberties, but you know what? Well, first of all, these are temporary measures. They're not permanent measures. And the other thing is that this is just scattershot stuff on the part of the government. They don't even know what they're doing. They had no plan when this thing started. They had no resources. They had been cutting back on all the things that they might have needed in order to combat the pandemic properly. Things such as personal protective equipment and the oversight and the warning system that we had set up in Canada for just this kind of thing. So the point is that they're working blind. And so, you know what? I would be very, very reluctant to ascribe to some kind of malevolent plan, anything that any of these governments, the American one, obviously, the British one, that any of these governments, I don't think you ascribe to malevolence anything that can be fairly attributed and accounted for by stupidity. Stupidity and negligence. Those two things are quite sufficient to counter the civil liberties thing. And the other thing that we do want to say is that there is no question that that we as citizens of the modern world are quite well equipped to sniff out these kinds of things and to object to these kinds of things and to rebel against these kinds of things if and when they become too intrusive. And so that is why I believe that there is no government plan to restrict our civil liberties. Okay, well, thank you very much, Andrew. Sarab, you're up next, 3 minutes.
Mr. Moderator and fellow panelists and all listeners, I think what we are saying here in the resolution, that the governments are taking away our civil liberties, they were going to take that anyway, because with the nature of the planet that it is, the pollution and the unsustainability of how global warming is taking place, it is because of human beings. The main reason for them was to reduce the population, to increase productivity, and so that we can live on that planet a little longer. So this COVID thing is just a tool to reach those objectives. Now, I was telling my esteemed colleague that I wrote an article, a blog post exactly 1 year ago, May 5th, 2020, where I said that we are in a time where we are taking control. This is 1984 playing out. 1984 exactly is that, because it's going to happen. That's and they're taking away, they're going to, now regarding this in the terms of having pandemic, most of the restaurants, the businesses are shut, the airlines are suffering, the people can't travel, and now they're having vaccine passports. All this is necessary, no doubt about that. It's a logical thing to do. But why is it happening? Because it was made to happen. Because this virus, in any case, is not a naturally occurring virus. There are many things about this. This was engineered to control the population. And what is happening along the way, the reduction of liberties is just a byproduct. That's going to happen. But in the end, the objective is to reduce the population so the resources on the earth can make it last a little longer. Because we have to leave something for our generations behind us. We can't leave there's no water, there's less, there's a lot of pollution, and the seas are polluted. And this is all happening because of too many people, too many human beings. So this is a natural progression. Like they're using now drones to monitor people in China. There are 1,000 drones there. They're using drones to monitor them as to social distancing. Why are you out? They ask them. And they're doing that in New Jersey too. So they're going to have vaccine passports. You may have a chip in the end, whether you've been vaccinated or not. That will be part of the passport. That'll be one way of doing it. So as the resolution goes, we are definitely losing our liberties along the way, and we accept it because of the pandemic. If there was no pandemic, would you reduce your liberties that way? And one could say,
Thank you, Mr. Sandu. That is your time.
thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, let us pass on next to Mario Karakidis. You have 3 minutes to make your arguments, Mario.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and everybody listening. The argument is that governments have the ability to control, their own individual populations, and somehow they're conspiring to control the entire world by using the pandemic as an avenue. The argument that you heard from my colleague Andrew is more than likely the more logical scenario. It is easy to give in to our fears and beliefs and start to make up conspiracy theories about why the government is trying to impose this. The more logical thing is that the governments are just knee-jerking right now. This was a novel virus that, even though coronavirus has existed in the past, they weren't as deadly as this one right here. And you do hear conspiracy theorists trying to play it down by making it sound like it's the common flu. But we all know that that is not true. And even there are some so-called specialists or scientists that come up and say these things. But they skew the numbers for an agenda of their own. Whether or not our civil liberties are being taken, let me ask you this question, and I'm posing this to everybody who's listening. If you were dealing with a situation where you know that there is an airborne virus out there that is killing, and the only way you can, if you don't have the ability to mitigate it through pharmaceuticals, through the ability of a vaccine or any way to prevent this, the only logical thing you have to do, the only weapon in your arsenal, is to keep the hosts away from each other so they don't give each other a place where this virus can go to. It's logical. Now, are we talking about governments trying to conspire? Well, governments are very much, we're not talking about autocracies here, but democratic governments are very much dependent on financing through the private sector. Do you think the airline industry would sit and take this? Do you think mega financiers that have billions of dollars of interest are going to just sit and take this? They won't. Folks, the bottom line is this. The governments, in the most part, are just reacting to this, trying to figure out step by step what's going on. And the hope is that they're going to get out of this unscathed to certain degrees, even though their incompetence is showing, and especially in Canada, we do see it in the federal, and we do see it in the provincial, and we see it in the municipal levels, that they're just trying to figure out things on the fly. There was no plan. And the problem why there was no plan is because nobody wanted to spend the money to be able to have a plan in place.
Thank you, Mr. Karakidis. That is your time. Okay, well, great. Okay, so those are the constructive arguments being put forth. Let's have a few minutes of round robin here. I'm giving 5 minutes to this exercise. I'm going to start.
May I start this, Andrew?
Oh, you can. Sure, go ahead.
All right. I have to agree to a certain extent that governments are stupid and they're not operating correctly. But that is an individual thing. It's on the basis of the individuals. What we are arguing isn't such that individuals are doing anything. It's a systemic loss of civil liberties happening because of circumstance. And the problem with this is once these liberties are lost, they are very difficult to get back.
Yeah.
When you look at the world prior to the pandemic, we didn't think about anything like this. But now our thoughts on all issues are based on fear.
Yeah. Well,
And all the government has to do to change us and make us change is to push our fear buttons.
okay, you know what? I need to make you come back to reality here, Alex, because you are not arguing from what I heard your side saying earlier, and I heard some pretty amazing things. I heard that governments are seeking to control the population and to bring
They
the
are.
population down actively. And I heard that the virus was engineered as a means of doing so. And those are two wild assertions that I am not going to allow to go unchallenged.
With the argument, listen, whether this virus was bioengineered, whether it was released by accident or on purpose, those things are things that we should be asking, okay? Because there has to be accountability to whoever has done this, okay? But here is the thing: we don't ask that question. We're sitting here debating whether or not our civil liberties are being taken away instead of arguing why. That being the case, when you are putting out those kind of allegations and you're throwing it out there without any proof, as our colleague Sarab was doing, that it's been bioengineered and it's to control population, where's the proof for this argument? I don't see it. Now, is it more logical to sit back and say, hey, the governments are incompetent, or is it without proof being able to tell us? And if you've got the proof, I want to hear it, Sarab.
Give me a break.
You're muted, which maybe the government is muting you.
The patent office in the United States has a patent for coronavirus. Now, coronavirus, if it's natural, you don't
So
need.
you say? I mean,
They have a patent. Go and have a look. They have a patent, and they also have a patent of how to rectify it, the remedies. Everything is by that, and it's Anthony Fauci who owns that patent. So why?
I'm a little worried about
coronavirus.
I'm worried about the social media sites that you frequent, and I'm worried about where you get your information.
I'm getting it from the patent office of United States of America.
Well,
okay, I want to see next week here. I want to see that patent flashed up with Anthony Fauci's name on it.
Yeah,
Okay, I will send you right now. I will send you.
Gentlemen, you're getting way off track. The simple, whether or not there are governments are engaging in conspiracy or not, it's still the simple fact that we're losing our liberties now. In future, you will be required to have a vaccine passport.
Owned by Anthony Fauci, inventing coronavirus. This is what we're listening to, Mr. Brown. I mean, where are we going with this debate here? I mean, can we keep it on a plane of reality?
Vaccine passports, microchips in our arms, and probably also and drone surveillance. And Sarab told you one of the things that's happening in China. They got thousands, maybe, well, they have to have billions of drones flying around just watching people.
80,000 drones, I believe, is the number that was advanced.
You're talking about an autocratic country that has been oppressive and has no civil liberties to begin with.
We have it in New Jersey too. And they're doing it in New Jersey in USA. The same thing, the drone system.
Let me explain something to you guys. After 9/11, there was certain erosion of civil liberties because the people were afraid. They created the Department of Homeland Security to be able to coordinate things. A lot of those civil liberties have been returned back. We saw an autocrat wannabe trying to take over the United States just recently. We saw the failure.
The name is Trump, in case you forget. The name is Trump.
So we're seeing that civil liberties and this voice of the people can stand up. We had our own government here in Ontario trying to do this by creating a police act that can stop people, and it failed because the police department and the people basically turned and said, no, we're not going to enforce this. So there is power in the voice.
It was too early for it.
Yeah, the name is Ford.
Give it another 5 years and that will be the norm.
Not necessarily, because
Okay, well,
We're talking here about a process. We're talking about a process of the erosion of our liberties.
but we do have
If
protections.
you want to travel next year, you will need a
No,
passport, something
You
that's
know
not
what?
been
When you had to
required
travel
in half
to
a
third world
century.
countries, when you had to travel to third world countries going in the 1960s and 70s, you had to be vaccinated to go there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be allowed to come back to the
Right.
country. You did have vaccine passports. This is nothing new, guys. This is just something and a reaction.
Okay.
It's not a matter of the fact, Mario, it's not a fact that the matter is that it's nothing new. It's just that we haven't needed them for almost half a century.
Right, because
And
we
now
haven't
we're
had a
going back.
massive
It
pandemic.
is the thin edge of the wedge. It's the thin edge of the wedge.
Time. That's a T, time. Okay, well, we love that kind of spirited debate. Very good. Okay, well, now we're going to do our sum up thing here in reverse order from the other arguments. So, Mario, you got 90 seconds to give us your final thoughts.
Okay, I got to calm down from this, but let me just tell you this. The bottom line is that governments are reacting to something that they didn't expect. Now, were they ignorant? Absolutely. Were they trying to prevent spending the money because they didn't see it as part of their normal governance ideologies, where they wanted to privatize more than keeping certain sectors under a nonprofit, so that money can be flying into to protections that is for the common good? Absolutely. Were egos involved from the government? They're trying to keep themselves reelected and trying to pander to their particular constituencies? Absolutely. The problem is, though, this is a crisis that most governments were not seeing coming, and the ones that did see coming, their plans, as we saw in the United States, were destroyed because of ignorance and because of ego. Okay, the pandemic plan was set up from the Obama years, and then the Trump administration destroyed the plan. So they were basically trying to figure out what to do and not do anything. Here, the federal government and the provincial government are just flying by the pants of their own seats, guys, and that's the problem. So let's not try to draw a conspiracy theory. Let's focus on what the real problem is: getting through this, acting properly, acting safely for the protection of each other, and then we will come through this, and you will see things will return back to normal as they have in Australia and in New Zealand.
Thank you, Mr. Karakides, for your very cogent and logical arguments. Okay, next we have Mr. Sarab here. Do you want to sum up your arguments, please?
yes, this whole sequence of event, as I say, I firmly believe that the resolution is that they're going to take liberties away. It's a gradual process. It first starts with the overall objective to reduce population. And the governments are part of that. The human beings are part of that. In the end, the objective is to reduce the population so the resources can be used properly. This is, I've termed it as pan-Earth. This is after the pandemic. This is going to be a new Earth where it's going to be a different ways of living, rules, amount of resource being used. It'll be a resource-based economy. It'll be such that all these big rich things will go away. It'll be like 1984. You're there, you're getting food, you're working in the factory, even the factory, and it'll be all run by artificial intelligence. We talked about it. This is what the world is going to go in the future, is going to be controlled. There was a movie called Logan's Run where everybody died at the age of 35, because if you're 35, a crystal starts glowing in your hand and you have to go. And that was controlling the amount of time you had in the sphere and how you lived and how you died, because there were other people coming there in the sequence. So this is the progression of that. Now this is the countries like India, they had a Kumbh Mela. They had 6 million people in one spot without masks in a COVID situation. You call it?
That is your time. Yeah, no, we're not going to advocate that for anyone. So no, okay. So thank you. Let us pass on to Mr. Wood. Mr. Wood, it's your turn to make your final arguments. You have 90 seconds to do so. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And okay, look, we've got what seems to be a bottom line proposition here from our opponents, that there is some kind of worldwide government cabal to reduce the overall population of human beings on this planet. Well, I wish a more substantial argument had been offered, because that one is easy, almost too easy to bat away, because there is nothing that works on a planetary level right now. There are no governments that are able to work together for any kind of a plan, such as climate change or something important like that, and to advance the fantasy that there is any kind of a plan on any government, not to mention world governments, to control the population through this kind of a pandemic is absurd. It's beyond absurd. And I'm going to repeat my contention that there is no reason for us to ascribe malevolence to any governmental body when foolishness, incompetence, negligence, and unpreparedness are perfectly sufficient to account for all the phenomena. And that's what we're talking about, folks. Human stupidity, not government malevolence. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Wood, for your arguments. And Alex, you've got 90 seconds.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues here on the con side have been trying to demonstrate to you that it's purely government incompetence that's fumbling into this issue that is causing it, and then we're going to get out of it. Well, after 9/11, the Homeland Security Organization in the States was set up, and it hasn't gone away. Maybe it's not as prominent as it was. Maybe the rights and freedoms that they took from Americans at that time have come back. But the laws are still on the books there that will allow them to reimpose them if they wish. I agree the governments are stupid, but when they react to situations like the recent pandemic, institutions are brought into play, and they don't go away. They just get worse. They hang around until the next crisis. My colleague here is not arguing this situation on the basis of the deemed conspiracy theories of the day as to what this is, although they are a plausible reason for this. He is saying that governments are reacting to this and that we can only expect more as we run into more and more issues. There will be issues in the future that will cause the government to react. Global warming, more pandemics, resource shortages, potentially wars. It's all there. And all of this together will reinforce the movement of the government to take away civil liberties, which we have already seen are being eroded.
Thank you.
In future, if you want to travel anywhere in the world, you will need a vaccine passport, something we haven't seen in half a century.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, and thank you very much, viewers, for lasting with us till this point. It's been a lively debate. We do not advocate shooting anyone, but what do you think here? Well, what's your own opinion? You can certainly come down on either side, because I did hear some good arguments being made on both sides. And well, let's see. So what do you think in the reply column? Now, we have something lined up for you for next week. So listen to this. We're going to talk about this here. Be it resolved that organic fruits and vegetables in the supermarkets are nothing but a scam. We'll argue that next week. So thank you very much, viewers, and we'll look forward to another session of this. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening, and please subscribe so you do not miss another episode. Thank you.